Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And if you're here for SMP News, which I suspect you may be, given the subject matter, then do hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because we've got a couple more videos coming up today. Those will be about the contenders. This one, not so much. This is about Nicola Sturgeon. She was asked what she is most proud of in her time in office. And she said it's the minimum unit pricing of alcohol. Now, of course, she has a very short list of things she's actually achieved, because most of what she's done has been truly awful. But she takes great pride and pleasure in ensuring that people find it harder to have a celebration or to socialise with friends. It just goes to show that this woman truly is joyless. Now, of course, there are critics out there who say, oh no, but this has achieved a saving of approximately 150 lives a year based on statistics. But my idea is that perhaps if all the time, effort and money gone into the minimum unit of pricing of alcohol had instead been channelled into, say, the NHS, far more than 150 lives a year may well have been saved. But anyway, let's have a look and see why this miserable woman is so proud of removing fun from the world. So, Nicola Sturgeon hails minimum unit pricing scheme as one of her proudest achievements as SNP leader in wake of a report. And the research published in The Lancet suggests 156 deaths a year on average in Scotland may have been prevented due to the pricing policy, which was implemented in May 2018. I will point out that this research was committed over, of course, the COVID era, when a lot of people weren't dying of anything normal. They were dying of COVID, apparently. And so these deaths, you can't guarantee that these were due to reduction of, say, alcohol intake or anything like that. Because what will happen is they'll be lost in the miasma, of course, of all those other weird deaths, of which many were called COVID, but which weren't actually COVID. There's also the fact that people weren't drinking as much or weren't socialising as much, and that will skew these figures. So straight away you know that these figures are somewhat questionable. I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying that there is enough doubt in there to call them into question as being entirely accurate. Anyway, over the 2 years and 8 months since the policy was implemented, so right into the middle of the COVID era, researchers found there had been a significant 13.4% reduction in deaths wholly attributable to alcohol consumption, compared with an estimate, using the data from England, of the deaths that would have occurred had the legislation not been implemented. But you cannot say that with any complete certainty because of what was going on around that period. If it was just a normal year, then possibly you would have a basis for comparison, but you cannot compare apples and bananas. You cannot compare normal years with the pandemic and the lockdown and all that. So it does immediately scream inaccurate. But anyway, he said there was a 4.1% reduction in hospital admissions for conditions wholly attributable to alcohol consumption. Well, there's going to be a lot less sort of fighting in pubs and that sort of thing. So, you're going to have that. There'll be a lot fewer accidents because people weren't going off and doing stupid things or going to work with alcohol on them and things like that. So, yeah, you've got to take into consideration that these figures cannot possibly be right. And then, of course, you've got it the other way. People sitting at home and going and bored and drinking alcohol even more. So, I mean, it's completely, it's completely meaningless, these figures, because it isn't a typical time period. Anyway, the outgoing First Minister tweeted about the Lancet study on Tuesday morning. She said, looking back at my years in government, this is one of the policies I'm proudest of. It was controversial and difficult, and I'm glad we persevered to overcome all the political and court challenges because, as this study suggests, it is saving lives. Suggests, not proves, and doubtful information. It's also, if she thinks that is something she should be proud of, she's had 8 years in charge, and she says reducing fun, reducing pleasure, costing people more for something they enjoy. We're not talking about the abusers of these things. We're talking about normal people who will occasionally take a wee dram or will have a wee swally on a Friday night. That is what she's destroying, and she's taking pleasure in it, because that woman has never known pleasure in her life. She is miserable, she is mean, and she is joyless. But then she's a Marxist. I mean, she's completely left-wing. And there's no one on the left is ever happy. And they hate the idea of someone, somewhere, experiencing a moment's relief from the misery that they cause. The study was carried out by Public Health Scotland and the University of Glasgow and the University of Queensland in Australia. Dr. Grant Wiper, not a great name for someone who's probably paid at the public purse, Grant Wiper. Anyway, Public Health Intelligence at PHS said the greatest reductions were seen for chronic alcohol health harms, in particular alcoholic liver disease, which was slightly offset with less certain evidence of increases in acute alcohol health harms. These are meaningless times. You don't know if people are drinking more or less because of lockup. You don't know if people are going out and socialising more or less because of lockup. You don't know anything. You cannot compare this. It needs to be rerun. And I'm not denying that it may be right. I'm not saying it's definitely right or definitely wrong. What I'm saying is that the period that they've done this research over is such an atypical period that it immediately questions the veracity of the numbers. But she's using these wrong numbers to say that this is what she's done and it's so right, and it isn't. And I'm not going into the report. It's not, because like I say, the report may or may not be right. There's no evidence that it can possibly be either. It's probably going to be that way, perhaps, maybe. But if you think all the effort that's gone into that, all these researchers, all these medical people researching it and looking at these numbers, imagine those medical people had instead spent a few hours in a hospital. Imagine that the money spent on getting this legislation through and fighting the court cases and all this had instead been put into an accident and emergency room. That sort of thing. I think overall you'd probably save definitely more than, 156 lives. So it's just, you're saving people's lives from one death, but causing far more misery elsewhere. And at the same time, you're also causing the misery for people who just don't abuse alcohol and who just want a drink on a Friday night. Anyway, a round off come up and we'll finish this short. It's only a short video, but it was just very telling about the mental capacity of this woman, that she gets so much joy from making other people's lives misery. In a few years after she's perhaps released from prison and has, had to repay all that allegedly missing money, perhaps, she might be sitting there alone, Peter having left to find love in the arms of another man, and she'll be lying and thinking it'd be nice to be able to drink away her gloom, but she'll look at the few pennies in her hand and go, oh, I can't afford it because of the minimum unit pricing of alcohol. And that would be the ultimate irony, of course. It's not going to happen, is it? She's got too much salted away and hidden. She'll be all right, Jack. She'll be alone, I suspect, and unemployed. Because she's unemployable, nobody will want to hire an ex-con, will they? But anyway, I shall finish here. It's just a shame that that's the only good thing she thinks in her mind that she can look back on. What a miserable, miserable woman that she truly is. Anyway, if you like what you're seeing here on the channel, do hit that subscribe button right away and ring the bell for notification on future output. Leave a like, leave a comment, please, please, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, don't stay sober, and goodbye.